Hello, good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Kwabena. I want to talk about engineering education and entrepreneurship. Engineering education and entrepreneurship. Um, we as a country, we are producing a lot of graduates. You know, we are producing now. We have a lot of colleges, a lot of universities, and some of them, or a lot of them, are doing degrees in engineering. Now we have converted all the polytechnics into universities, and we have engineering courses and engineering disciplines from agricultural engineering to mechanical engineering to civil engineering, electrical engineering, computer. Now they're even doing aerodynamics, all kind of engineering courses that we are producing. We are producing a lot of these guys who are coming out. Now, the reality is that the industries are not there to absorb a lot of these guys. Even the primary university, the typical engineering courses like maybe agric or mechanical engineering or civil engineering, the primary ones, the basic ones, are not even able to absorb a lot of these guys. Now you go to some of these banks, you go to some of these service industries, and you seem to have a lot of most of these guys with first degree engineering courses, engineering graduates working in most of these. Now, if you look at the setup of our economy, we should have industries ready to absorb a lot of these guys, at least the ones with the mechanical degree, the ones with the agricultural engineering degree, maybe electrical engineering, those kind of things. Now you have geodetic, metallurgical engineering, material, all kind of engineering guys that they are producing. Now the problem and the challenge is that industry is not ready. Industry is not expanding enough to absorb a lot of these engineering guys. Now, when you are in the school and they are pushing all these theories on you, when you're doing these engineering courses, they give you theory. They give us a lot of theory, but very little experience and skill to come out with a product or to come out with a process that you can market, that you can use to solve problems of society. So I want to talk to you about engineering and entrepreneurship. If you happen to have yourself doing some of these courses, engineering courses in the universities, or you happen to have a son or a daughter, a brother or a sister doing some of these courses in most of these universities that we have in Africa, in Ghana, the reality is that most of them will find themselves fighting for job right after school. A lot of them would have to look for jobs, and some of them may not even be engineering jobs, because the engineering jobs, we are yet to go through that. And so when you are in school and you're doing some of these courses, you're very happy, and you come with suit and tie, and they tell you that I'm doing mechanical engineering, geodetic engineering, geological engineering, all kind of engineering. Now they have added a lot of them, but industry has not grown to that. And so, would I say that don't do the engineering? No, I would not say so. Now, all these polytechnics, a lot of them are also doing all these kind of engineering courses. Very little practical exposure, very little industrial skill and development for most of these graduates. So they will come out, and maybe 5 to 10% will be absorbed from government to private industries. 90% of them would have to go and fight for themselves. And so I think, and I'm of full conviction, that if you are in some of these courses, if your son is doing some of these courses, it's good. Engineering is purely about problem solving. That is, if they train you well. If they train you well, the course content is able to make you think and break issues down. That is, if you focus. But if you didn't, then there is a challenge. But even that, you still have a better chance of developing yourself. And if you happen to have come out of the school, you can still develop yourself. And I'll go through some steps with you. I did some of those things. I did some of those courses. And I remember that they gave us the theory. They sent us through some lab, and we wrote some lab reports actually. And we after 4 years, they gave us some certificate and they told us that we qualified to have engineering degree. And so they are producing a lot of these guys, they are producing a lot of these engineering guys from all. Let's say we have 10 polytechnics in Ghana. Let's say all engineering department or engineering schools, every one of these polytechnics is producing maybe 500 graduates, engineers. So that automatically comes to 5,000. I'm just giving you assumption. Now, Tech and some other universities are also producing a lot of these guys. So every year, you're producing not less than maybe 10,000 engineering students, engineering graduates, with which industries to work. Which industries to work. And so the only option now is for the students themselves, is for the graduates themselves to educate themselves in terms of entrepreneurship alongside the engineering degree that they are getting. If you don't do that, you will come out and be ready to opt for any kind of position, any kind of job, because that is what will be available for you. You may end up becoming a teacher even though you didn't want to become a teacher. You may end up becoming a bank clerk or something like that, even though you never thought of going to do engineering and ending up becoming a bank worker, or all kind of things. Or some of you may end up right away following politics or even becoming journalists, because those are the options. Now, if you knew that those are the things that you're going to do, then you didn't have to go and worry yourself so much through university education and doing all this engineering maths and all these practicals and all these troubles, and to end up to become a bank clerk. I don't think that that's appropriate. I'm not looking down upon bank clerk or something like that, but I don't think that you need a university, you need an engineering degree to go and become a bank clerk. So the fact that you were so much enthusiastic with this engineering that you were doing, and you were so much hopeful, they should have told you that the industry or the economy is not that expanded enough for you to get a job in your so-called engineering education that you are so much passionate about. And the professors and the lecturers, the other thing is that they are also ill-equipped in terms of being able to train us to start something on our own. And so we'll be so much happy to get all these theories pumped in us, and very few of us will go back to become lecturers. Very few can be accepted as lecturers. Very few probably will be absorbed in the existing job market. The rest of us would have to fight, and the reality is that some of us will never find a job with the so-called engineering degree that they gave us. A lot of us, not the ones that we are that much happy and proud of. But I think that you still are that much equipped, far more equipped than the other people who read the other courses. I think so, especially when it comes to what it takes for you to build a business for yourself. I think that if you did anything in terms of engineering from the university, if you get to understand the right way to do things in terms of setting up yourself, you'll be better off. And you'll be a bit more. You have a little advantage over the other ones because you understand numbers. You likely know how to use computer. There are things that, because business is about selling something, producing something, working on the process, and the engineering mind already has some kind of basic understanding in those areas. So I think that the factors benefit the engineers if you happen to start a business. And so you have to just think through. What I've seen is that a lot of these guys who come out of these engineering courses, end up becoming so much frustrated that they don't want to do anything with engineering at all. They want to become, they if they want to further the education, they want to go into MBA, they want to go into law, they want to go anything outside that, because the first degree they didn't know what to do. The industry was not ready for them. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality on the market. That's the reality of our job market. So someone saying that education and industry disparity is too wide. Yes, because we are yet to go through industrialization. We don't have industries. We just have people trying to make something, but those are not industries, So because if you pick a typical, let's say, chemical industry, for instance, if you have about 100 chemical industries, any typical industry will have the plant engineers, you have the electrical engineers being there, you have all kind of things, all kind of people being present in one particular industry. So let's say one particular industry can pick about 4 or 5 different kinds of engineers, to work in just one industry. Or let's say you pick maybe a food industry, for instance. You have all kind of engineers who have to work in that kind of industry. Now, how many of them do we have? We don't have them. So the engineers that we are producing, even the civil engineers, how many construction companies do we have? So those are the facts that we have to equip. We need engineering education. We need the technical education. We need all these guys coming from the polytechnics, but they finish the first degree and they have to find themselves to go and become anything that they never thought of becoming when they were in school. Because man must live, man must pay bills, man must have some salary. But the reality is that you can also school yourself alongside the engineering degree, because I think that is a good degree. No matter how inferior the training may have been, it's still not bad at all in terms of the breaking of the mind, in terms of being able to solve problems. So one of the things that, if you have this kind of education and you are thinking of entrepreneurship, which you don't have a lot of choices anyway, because now they still continue to produce a lot of these guys. We are producing every year. We are producing a lot of these engineers. Some of them will find a way of running away, but a lot of us will stay, and the market is not that much expanding. And so I think that you are better equipped to starting something yourself if you think, and if you get to open your mind with a basic engineering degree, you can do something for yourself. And the problem is that most of them are not open-minded. That's the problem. They fall in love with the idea. Most engineers fall in love with the idea that they have engineering education. So I did agric engineering. Yes, I fought so much in love with the fact that today I was trained as an engineer. A lot of us, even the course content, I remember even the management that they were teaching us those days. The management was even calculation. There was no humanity. There was no human side to the engineering. And so the engineer is restricted in terms of being able to understand what it takes to build a business. Because it's all calculation and it's all mechanical. It's separate from reality. That's a typical engineering education. I don't know what they are doing now. So most engineers are that much in love with the fact that they have been able to come up with an idea, and they like the calculation and all the complex things that they talk about the idea, but they forget how to commercialize the idea. And so if you are coming up with those kind of education, don't forget that whatever that idea that you can come up with, maybe you are that fortunate that maybe you did computer engineering or coding or programming, and so you are able to come up with a software which the market needs. Don't fall in love so much with the product or with the process that you've been able to come up with, such that you cannot link it to the market. And that's a problem for engineers. They so much love the idea that they've been able to produce something, but as to how that idea will benefit, as to how much that idea will become beneficial in terms of commerce, most engineers are not able to translate from that engineering gift, that engineering idea, that engineering thinking into making sure that the idea can become commercialized. And so you have to break that. It's rigid because of the way they train us. It's rigid because of the courses that they give. They teach you all these complex formulas. Sometimes you don't even greet people. A typical engineering professor has no time to greet and express humanity and things like that. So they look at machines. And I think that the engineering course was not designed for you to come out to start a business. It was designed for you to go and work in an industry, and there's a difference. Now the industries are not there. So they should break the idea that we are producing engineers to go and work in industries, and possibly make them understand that now you have to go and create the industry yourself, no matter how small it is. Because, you know, if you trace the history, it was more of the entrepreneurs they needed engineers, and therefore they had to just come up with some kind of education to produce a lot of them to feed industry. Now, our kind of market, our kind of economy, we don't have that yet. Yet we are producing engineers, which means that we have to let them understand that before, maybe in other countries, the industries are there. So you didn't have to think so much about how the idea will benefit in how you'll be able to translate the idea into business. Because the whole training was for you to just get out of the university, get out of the engineering training, and go and work in an industry as a mechanical engineer, as an agric engineer, as a geodetic engineer, as a what kind of engineering that they give you, metallurgical engineer, process engineer, whatever they gave you. You are trained purely to feed the industry. So you were not given, in terms of thinking, to create that industry. So the training is restricted, and you have to break that yourself. You have to look at what is more than just the typical technical education, technical engineering education that they are giving you. If you are not able to break that, you will come out of the university, and the only thing you understand is to look for job, and these jobs may not be there. You know, so I think that if the professors will be fortunate enough to see the essence of training these guys that are coming, you cannot give them a typical education as if we had industry. We don't have them. We don't have them. You may just be employed. You may be able to employ just about 3, 4, 5% of these engineers that you're producing. A lot of them would have to think as entrepreneurs. And the way the training is, it's tough for most of these guys to translate to just thinking as engineers into thinking as entrepreneurs. Because the entrepreneur does not just only fall in love with the idea, but is also looking at how the idea becomes beneficial, how the idea can be commercialized, how the idea can grow to become a business. So if you have to move, and which you must have actually, because if you don't, you'll come out and become an engineer, but you'll be looking for something. And in now you go to most of these banks, insurance companies, most of these radio stations, you have a lot of engineers working there. And it's not because that was their initial intention. It's because those are the areas that they could get jobs. And a lot of them don't even have a place to work, you know, because they train us to just go and work in established companies. And the fact is that our economy, the established so-called companies, are not many, and they cannot absorb all these engineers that we are producing. And so you have to, if the school is not even giving you that flexibility in terms of thinking, you have to break that. You have to be open and open-minded. The education is good, engineering education is good, but you have to know that it's so much limited because you've been produced to just go and feed industry, which does not exist. You know, so most of these engineers will find it difficult to work with people. Most engineers find it very difficult to work with people. You know, they don't know. They just in love with their expertise. But you cannot translate as an engineer into building business, into becoming an entrepreneur, if you don't know how to work with people. And so most of these guys, very good. They are very good mathematicians. They can solve all their engineering problems, but they cannot even coordinate and collaborate with another person. And that is a handicap for most engineering students. You know, so if you are coming out, or if you are in school, know that the fact that you're very good with your mathematics, the fact that you can produce something with engineering that they have trained you, does not mean all by yourself. A lot of them, if you put them in a room to say that work on this thing, they will be very much good. They can code, they can work on their computers, they can work on this machine, they can draw, they can come out with all these architectural drawings, structural drawings, they're very good. Because that's how they've been trained to work and believe in their thinking. But for you to move from just being an engineer to being an entrepreneur, you have got to have the people skill. You know, so you have to add that to your engineering education, or you will come out believing that you are the best thing that ever happened, and you cannot start a business with that kind of thinking. No, because a business is really a composite of other gifts. People would come in. It's not just, even if your business is an engineering firm, you have to go. You have to know how to work with the other departments. You have to know how to work with the finance. You have to know how to work with the cleaners. You have to know how to work with everybody. But typical engineering guy is so much by himself. Because the training makes you think. You are trying to get a solution, and you think that your mind is everything. And so that is a limiting factor, and that is what prevents a lot of engineers from coming up, from being able to translate from just engineering into being able to start a business. Because to start a business, you need that human factor, you need that connection with people, because it's an idea that you play with ideas. You have to have the skill to tap talents, and that is not in the engineering education. That is not. That is not at all. It just give you formula. Everywhere is formula, or machine you are working with, or come up with something. There is no human component of it. So, the best, the best. If you go to even existing companies, engineers are just in the engineering department, working with the machines. Everything else happens in the company they don't even hear, because that's the kind of training that they have given them. So they were training you as an engineer, not to become a business owner. Because if they were to train, the people that study the MBA and the business education, they tell them the importance of knowing which talent to pick and work with. I don't remember some of these things being added to the engineering courses that they were pushing. Not in the dominant form. And so you go through the so-called engineering education, and you will not be able to start a business, because it takes more than just the formulas that they are teaching you. It takes more than just you being able to to calculate the heat content and all those things that they were saying to start a business. So the reality is that you're going to produce a lot of engineers, and the businesses are not there, the companies are not there. A lot of you will just have to have another way of getting another form of training added to the engineering training that they have given you. Sometimes you may even have a job, but how about if you so desire to start a business? You need more than just the engineering skill or the engineering expertise that you have. Most engineers don't like anything to do with sales, marketing, or business development. It's not part of it. There's nothing like sales. They don't teach you any sales in engineering school, or marketing, or business development. It's not part of it. Not the one I had. I remember what they told us was some people came to teach us entrepreneurship and how to, something like that. But sales, marketing, business development, it's not part of it. Now you have to add that to your training yourself. I don't know if they have added that, but if they have not, you have to add that, because for you to translate from just being an engineer to becoming an entrepreneur, which a lot of you would have to find a way of moving, because the jobs are not going to be there that much. Those are the facts. So if you're finishing school and you are waiting that MTN will take you, there are a lot of engineers who have been around here for 10 years. MTN is not expanding that much for them to take all the electronic guys coming out, or the computer guys coming out. So, but we are producing. And how many telecommunication companies do we have? Maybe 4. Vodafone, MTN, Kasapa, and some other guys. So all these electronic people that we are producing, where are they going? I don't know. Or the power people that we are producing, we have Valco or something like that, or ECG. How many can work in these companies? So a lot of you would have to find a way of building your own businesses. And yet the training that they have given us is so limiting in terms of being able to move from just an engineering thinking, engineering way of looking at life, and into a business way, in an entrepreneurship way of looking at life. Because you come with a better skill, actually. A lot of you will finish school and you'll be able to produce something, or you'll be able to look at data and extract to produce a process or a product or something like that. But the fact that you have been able to produce something like that does not mean that you can translate it into building a business. You have to have another set of mind, another thinking, another frame of looking at the world, to be able to move that idea, that product into a business. And so that is it. So selling, you have to learn. And a lot of us are not proud with that, because how can you go into tech to read electrical engineering, and now you want to sell a telephone? Well, no. You want to sell mobile phone. How? It will not even cross your mind because you think that is below you. You went to learn electronic engineering And you think that he will finish school and come and sell mobile phones, smartphones. No, he won't do that. It's not part of his thinking. No, it's below him. Yet that is a skill that will help him to build a mobile phone company if he knows how to sell. And that will never be added to the course. They will not add that. Let's say you did chemical engineering or you did mechanical engineering, for instance. You know, the machine parts that they are producing, you cannot keep producing if you don't know how to sell them. So I think that the best way to start any business or to start any industry is to look at how you build the sales infrastructure than just the production. Because when you produce, it must meet the market. And yet you as an engineer, you have no taste, no passion to sell. You hate it. You don't even know it. A lot of these guys don't know anything about selling. And they even think that it's not them. Can you think that an engineer will go and stand at ShopRite to sell? He won't go, you know. Or he take his laptop and go from shop to shop or room to room to sell. When we were in school, I didn't see most of these engineers do that. Yet, that was the best training that they should have told us to get. That whilst you're going through all these courses in the school, if you're doing electronic engineering or something like that, go and learn how to sell telephones or something. Go and learn how to sell maybe an electronic gadget or something. You know, because your ability to relate, because you cannot just produce. Even if you produce, you cannot just produce according to your taste. You produce according to what the market wants. And that is not part of the training that we are giving you. They're just giving you formulas. They're just giving you how to hype. So the separation is so huge. And so if you want to move from just being an engineer to an entrepreneur, look at selling. Look at how the people who sell, what do they know about selling? What do they know about the market? How do they understand the market, the customers? How do they know what the market wants? How do they know what to price? Those things are not part of engineering training. So that's why it's a bit difficult for engineers to just move from being just an engineer to becoming an entrepreneur, because the training does not link that. And so you have to do that yourself if you think that you have the passion to build a business. It's not just the technical expertise. It's not that you can just put tractor together or you can do a com mill or something. The fact that you can fabricate something that you think will solve a problem does not mean that you can build a business around it. That's what beats the engineers. They focus so much on what they can produce, and by the time they finish producing it, nobody needs it, because they don't understand the sales, they don't understand the market, they don't understand what the market was, because most of them is not part of the training at all. So you have to add that to your training. You have to do that yourself if you want to build a business. And the thing is that it's not even if you want to, because all the graduates that they are producing with engineering, now they are producing maybe not less than 10,000 every year. Where are the companies? Where are the companies? So if you so desire to work with your so-called engineering degree, you have to know how to build something yourself, and it's not beyond you. So if your son is doing something like that, if your daughter is doing something like that, if your uncle, you know, somebody that you know is getting engineering degree and they want to stay in our country, which we need them, but they have to know that the engineering course was designed for them to just go and look for a job, and for them to go and look for a place to work, big industries. And the unfortunate thing is that we don't have these industries yet. We don't have them. At the same time, you're producing all these engineers with the kind of content that is only designed for them to work in industries, you know. So they have to go and look for Nestle to work with. They have to go and look for ECG, Valco, all these companies. How many are they? We are producing a lot of these guys every month, and yet the industry is not expanding. So if you're an engineer, my first point is that don't so much fall in love with the idea that you produce. Engineering is about problem solving. You can produce a product, you can produce a process, but don't so much fall in love with the product. You want to know how to commercialize that idea. You want to know how to commercialize that product. That is what you want. Not so much that because you have been able to produce an item and you like it so much, you can calculate. That's when you meet a typical engineer, he's talking about calculation and how product and what the product can solve. It doesn't talk as to, does the market need it? Can it sell? Would there be any need for it? They don't think like that because it's not part of the typical engineering training. And they find it difficult to work with people because of the training. Most engineers are not people friendly. Most engineers are just calculation. They think in terms of numbers and machines. They are not good with people. And if you are not good with people, it's tough for you to build a business. You have to find a way of getting to work with people and finding talent, and a lot of them don't also know anything about. It's not a lot of them. The course is structured for you not to know anything about sales, about marketing, about how a business is developed. It's not part of it at all. So you finish it, you're looking for another company to work with, and they are not there. And that's where the frustration is setting. And that's why you find a lot of them in all these industries that they didn't want, they didn't train for, they never wanted to be there. But those are the available ones that they have. And there will be a lot of them who may not even find any place to work at all, which you have to develop yourself. So some of them too who may even have the passion and understanding of the market may also be so much, they over design and over perfect. You meet a typical engineer building a house, he wants to do everything accurate. And the market may not be ready to have the money to pay for that kind of precision. So there's a way that you have to understand what the market can also afford. So you have to understand that this thing that I'm producing, can the market afford? And more usually, that is an entrepreneurship kind of thinking. That you want to produce a product that is really needed, and that you understand the market, you understand the people you're producing for. That you have to add to your training. Taking risk. Engineering training is not part of risk taking, because you're looking at structural strength. You're looking at the load. Can it contain it? You're measuring. You're taking temperature. You don't want to risk. That's the training. Yet entrepreneurship is about risk. So the opposite is tough. Because let's say you did stress and strain and all those. The benefit is that whatever that you're designing should not collapse. That's the training. Subconsciously, that's the training that you have given you. So if you're building a house, you're doing all the calculation to make sure that every load that you're putting on it stands. If you're going through the industry producing maybe whatever, maybe it's a liquid, maybe it's a solid product, whatever that you're working on, you don't want it to fail. You don't want it to choke the machine. So the training, you have gone through risk and safety. They give you that kind of thing. They make sure that you reduce risk, and you make sure that safety is of of optimum importance to your design and to your practice. That's engineering. Now, at the same time, entrepreneurship is about risk. There's no safety. So they give you this kind of training, which is safety, and then at the same time they say that go and practice something that there's no safety. It's full of risk, uncertainty. It's not predictable. How do you blend this? You have to make sure that you add that kind of education to your engineering training, because you don't embrace risk taking. You want it to be predictable. You want it to be accurate. That's why you do the calculation. You do the maths. They give you the formula. There's no guess with the formula. The formula is not left to interpretation. It's not law. If you go to the law, they read it. They can explain it the way they want. This one, they give you, okay, this is 3 meters. This is 4 meters. You have to multiply, divide by 5, and you have to get a specific answer, because that you compute that answer for accuracy. That's engineering. Now, when you go to entrepreneurship, that's not like that. You don't get the right answer right away. You risk it. And that becomes a lot more uncomfortable for the engineers. Because the engineering training, as I said, was geared towards you becoming so good at what you do and going to work in an established industry. That's the whole sense. So they didn't design that kind of education for you to go and establish or to start a business. So it's not, you don't go through that with a startup training. Startup training or starting a business is risky, and they didn't add that. They didn't want you to come, and they don't want you to become an apprentice in the industry. They want you to come prepared as a graduate, work and produce the right results. That's the kind of training they gave you. Now, those industries are not there. So probably they should also tell you that now the industries are not there. So there should be some allowance of risk and of safety, on safe environment that you're going to work with, or that you're going to go in. So that thinking, you have to shift. You cannot be looking for comfort and you be risk averse so much. Because if you go with that rigid mindset, if you go with that rigid training, you will not be able to establish any business. And yet we need a lot of you guys to start anyway. And it's not that we need. Sometimes those are the only options that are available. Those are it. The only options available now will be for you to go and start a business. And yet they gave you so much rigid training in terms of the engineering education that you cannot try anything. And so you have to retool your mind in terms of what it takes to build a business, in terms of what it takes to become an entrepreneur. It's a whole different thing. It's maybe opposite, maybe 80% of the engineering education that they gave you. So you have to think. You have to think and see that, listen, I have fantastic degree in engineering, technical skill, maybe. That is even if you understand the practicals at all. But at the same time, I have to go and learn how to build a business. And much of it is opposite the tools that they have given me. I have to go and retool my mind. So comfort. You like comfort. You like accuracy. You want to be certain. There's certainty. It's a frame of thinking. You talk to any engineer on any project. Look at how they talk. You meet them, there's nothing like friendliness, or they just go to the figures. As engineers, you go to the site, it's not like, how are you, how is the family? No. Okay, so where are the numbers? So these are the measurement. How many degrees? That's how they talk. That's the part of the training, and that's how they practice. And that's why it's difficult for most engineers to become very good entrepreneurs, even though they have the basis to become very good entrepreneurs. But the training, so they have to push a lot of content on themselves in terms of entrepreneurship content. The flexibility, the human factor, the risk taking, not perfecting the idea, but starting to move and testing the market as you go. Those things, you need them as an engineer for you to shift from just being an engineer to maybe starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur. So that is part of it. If you don't look at these things critically, that's why most engineers, the closest they get to in terms of business is they becoming consultants. They become consultants because consultants don't take risk. They advise you and they charge you. You're not the one responsible for the resource. They just give you advice. So they are just consultants. They charge you. They are not the one taking the risk. They don't take risk at all. That's the closest they get in terms of business. But if you want to be the one involved in the business physically, you have to shift the mind and know that it takes a lot of risk to start a business and to build it. So if you don't like, the engineers hate unpredictability and they hate uncertainty. They want to be sure that this building is not going to fail. Of course, that's engineering, perfect. But when you shift to business, you cannot just say that I want to be sure. Sometimes you just have to go and start and keep building. And that is very tough for most engineers, especially those who are very much rigid in the way they think. So, and part of it is that they are not trained in terms of financial knowledge and financial understanding. They don't have any training at all in terms of money. Most technical people, most engineers have no clue what money is, what it takes to make one, and how to use it to build a business. It is not part of the training. The 4-year training, they never hear anything about money. So he finishes the school. He says that you want him to become an entrepreneur. Listen, you cannot become an entrepreneur. You cannot build a business if you have very little understanding of money and little appreciation. A lot of them don't have any interest at all in terms of money. They focus on just repairing the machines or coming up with another product. They don't want to be concerned with the money at all. Listen, you have to be concerned with the money if you want to build a business. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to be trouble. You don't have to be uncomfortable with it. You have to study it. And yet, all the 4-year education that they gave you, money was never part of the training. So how do you move from a training that they never told you anything about money into a profession like entrepreneurship, where everything that you're dealing with is also money? Because if you're working on a project, they have to pay you money. You have to understand the numbers. You have to understand cash flow. You have to understand capital and all those things that finance provides. Most of us never had any financial knowledge, financial education for the 4-year engineering training that they gave us at all. So how do you build a business if you don't know anything about money? Nothing about money. So you have to go and study it yourself. Retool your mind in terms of financial knowledge. If you want to move from just being a typical engineer to becoming an entrepreneur, because you will need that. You pay salary, you pay people. Sometimes you owe, sometimes you have debt. All those things. If you, they train you not to be comfortable. It's just like any other technical training. Most doctors don't have any idea what is money. They don't want it at all. They are not interested. They're just interested in the surgery. So most engineers are very much interested in just the project drawings. You know, the machine drawing is there. That's what they're interested in. With that, you cannot build a business unless you team up with somebody, or unless you retrain yourself. Because entrepreneurship has got to do with money. And so they should have added that to the course. You know, but I told you, or I said that the whole training is designed for us to go and work in well-established companies. That's why they never teach us about money. They never teach us about management. They never teach us about people. They never even teach us about the connection between the idea and the market. You know, sales, they don't teach you. They don't teach you a lot of things about risk taking, all those, because you don't have to do all those. They designed the course for you to go and work in an established company. And if you're working in an established company, you don't have to worry. You just work and they pay you. Just work and they pay you. So you don't have to worry about everything else, you know. But this time around, because the industries are not there, because you are yet to go through all those, and because they are producing a lot of these engineers from Ho to Boko to everywhere, you know, all the polytechnics are producing them. Now even private universities are producing them. You're producing a lot of guys all across board, all engineering, you know. You just have to find a way to establish yourself. And you cannot establish yourself as an entrepreneur if you don't have any interest in money. Because if you don't like it, you have to know it for you to make the right decision. So that's why it's tough for, you know, when you start as a business person, when you start and you had this kind of background as an engineer, it's difficult for you to even make right choices in terms of money, unless maybe you're coming from a home that they taught you a lot about money. A lot of the financial terms will be very much unfamiliar to you, because the whole content is designed not taking money into consideration. So liability, asset, cash flow, you know, profit and loss statement, all those things that the financial statement, audited account, all those terms you will never come close to it, because they didn't put it. Especially what I did, I never met anything like that. So how do you go to start a business, to become an entrepreneur, when you have so much limited understanding of finance? Because it's not part of the training at all. How? You know, so that's why you have to add them yourself, because they designed the thing for you to go and work. And of course, if you're working with Valco, if you go to talk with the project engineer there, he has no idea what financial statement is. He has no idea. He doesn't worry about all the things that you have to worry about as an entrepreneur, because it's not his game. He doesn't need it. And that's how the training is for. Now you want to, and you must know that I want to start a business, even if it's not an engineering business. I must know some of these things for me to keep going, and for me to understand, for me to make the right decisions and the right choices. So so that is it. So engineering training, engineering education, and entrepreneurship, you have to reschool yourself in terms of entrepreneurship. You have to reschool. You have to think. You have to plan. You have to structure. I remember when there was a time that there was some entrepreneurship training that they were doing for some other engineers, and they told them to come up with ideas, business ideas. It was trouble. It was very difficult for a lot of them. And so the other thing that I would say is that you should be open. Even if you're able to build the business right from the beginning, you should also be open to get a lot of people on board, and you should be secure in your way of looking at life, so that if people have to come in and support, and for you to share the profit, and for you to share the business, you'll be ready to share it. You don't have to say that, no, I've sweated, you know, I've gone through all this all my life, so I'm not open. That's why most engineers don't grow businesses. But the third is that I think among all the courses, among all the programs, I think those who can do more in terms of business. I think the people with the sciences, the mathematics, the engineering, the technology have a first chance of being able to solve problems holistically and think through numbers. But there are other things that beat them and which are also crucial. So uh, being able to come out with the idea and linking it to the market is key. And being knowing that it's not only about you, other people would have to come out and join. Other people have talent, and you being able to work with people to build a business is crucial. Being able to learn how to sell and market yourself, negotiate, communicate, build yourself beyond the engineering thinking is crucial. It's crucial. You have to talk. You can't say that me, I'm just very much moderate and conserve. No, you have to go and negotiate, talk to somebody, convince somebody to give you the project, convince somebody to give you the money, convince somebody to solve the problems, convince somebody to follow you. You have to have that. It's not just about screw and things like that. It's not just about the lathe machine that you're turning. No, it's about being able to talk and convince people and negotiate and fight. That's about entrepreneurship. So beyond the design, beyond the process, you have to understand that the market must pay for your idea. And so you should understand what the market is able to pay. What the market is able to pay. And forget about risk. You will take it. If it's a business, you are going to take risk. So be open to it that it's a business. I will take risk. I'll take risk. And train about the money as well. You need to understand the finances because it's part of it. If you leave it, you cannot pitch the business. You cannot start the business. But by and large, you have a lot advantage, I think, as an engineering student, because if they push you to any industry, production, it's about engineering. A lot of it is about engineering, So you have better chance of understanding things than than the other fields. So try and add more. If you have not finished school, look at these topics and read them just as you are reading the others. Don't so much focus on the fact that you are very happy reading computer engineering. You will finish and you don't know what to do with it. Aerodynamics engineering that they are producing there, how many aircraft do we have in our country? So there are some courses that you're doing, automatically you are coming out to just have to establish yourself. And I think that you have the capacity to create and think as an engineering student or as an engineer to create your own business. You can do that. They just have to tell you that it's possible. And you have to get the data, you have to get the understanding, you have to build your confidence, you have to build the content. But it's possible. It's possible. You are well equipped to do that. You just have to know that, because, for instance, if I enter the things that we do, if I enter anywhere, I'm able to understand and link the processes faster than the other person who didn't do that, who have to go and study and read to themselves. There are basic things that I can easily calculate because of the mathematics, because of the engineering. So you come with a lot. The money, the people, there's a lot of calculation that you're doing. There are a lot of processes that you can join because of the engineering mind that they have given you. So don't just say that I did this engineering, you are sitting at home crying. No. There's other things that they should have added that they didn't, because the whole idea of the education, of the engineering education, was for you to go and work in well-established companies like Valco, all those. The unfortunate thing is that we are producing more of you than Valco can expand to take, or MTN can expand to take, or DACO can expand to take. So you have to know that the chances that you find yourself establishing your own business is very high. It's very high. And so go and learn the other side beyond the engineering degree. Then you will be able to fight with it. I think that 90% of all these guys coming from universities, from engineering, should be trying something themselves. And 10% should go and work with all these companies. 90% of you should be trying something yourself. Starting a farm, starting a machine production company, starting a consortium, starting construction companies, starting an engineering firm, starting an industry, starting anything with the kind of background they have given you, starting a mining company, whatever that you can start with, you know, because you are equipped with that. So see beyond the theory, see beyond the calculation, see beyond the lab reports that they are telling you. And there's no difference between all the engineering courses that you're doing there. You know, so when somebody saying I'm doing electrical and he thinks that he's better than the other guy doing maybe geodetic or something. No, there's no difference. Because it's still the same basic engineering principles that they're giving you. And every one of you can start any industry in any field if you so understand what you're doing. And so it's a matter of opening your mind and developing your mind and getting the thought that it's possible and you understanding what is out there for you. You know, it's better for you to get equipped and come out and do something for yourself than just going to look for visa to become a liability in another country, you know. So you did, because you didn't add these things, when you finish, your mind is closed. You cannot think in terms of entrepreneurship. You cannot think in terms of business because you never added those kind of trainings to you. So they talk about them and you think that they are weird because you think that it's not possible. You never read them. You didn't understand them. You never studied them. And so that is what I have to say. So train yourself beyond engineering and think of how you can add value constantly to yourself and train alongside as you are training with your engineering courses. So study about what idea is relevant to the market, study about people and how to work with them, study about money, study about how to establish a business, how to plan for the future, study about all those things because you need them. It's likely that you will not be fortunate to find yourself working for some of these companies. And you may be the next one, the next guy who can build an engineering firm or an industry that will be employing a lot of people. And that is what I think most of these engineering guys should be thinking about. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you.